Hello all and welcome. And I'm the Realist Philosopher, and in today's video, I'd like to talk about the subject of capitalism. What it is, what it isn't, and why some people don't like it. So first off, let's define capitalism. What is it? Well, to understand that, you first have to understand freedom. So, what is freedom? Well, simply put, freedom is having the ability to do what you want, so long as it harms no one else. And when I use the word harm, I mean actual harm, not simply harming someone's feelings. So, as long as you harm no one else, you should be able to do whatever you like. Now, how does this apply to capitalism? Well, simply put, capitalism is the word which we use to define the activity of freedom within the realm of economic activity. And what do people do when they're left alone to be economically free? Well, they trade with one another, they save money, i.e. capital, and they use that capital to pursue whatever it is they wish to pursue. Now, most who do this in an entrepreneurial bent will fail, but some will succeed. And those who succeed will very often hire workers and expand, and perhaps one day go public and have shares in their company traded on the stock exchange. Now, those who fail, they might try again and fail again. But even throughout that process of trial and failure, there's economic productivity occurring. As for that amount of time that they are trying, they're employing people to produce a good or a service. Now, why did they fail in the first place? Well, maybe they tried to develop a good or service that there was no market demand for, or maybe they simply weren't very good at business or what they were trying to do as a business. Regardless, both the successes and the failures in a free economic system contribute to economic growth and are both products of freedom. That's capitalism in a nutshell. People pursuing their own ends when left alone to do so. And the freedom to succeed or fail based upon your abilities and the veracity of your ideas is, in my mind, what makes capitalism so great. So, sounds pretty good, right? Being allowed to do whatever you want with what you have, be it the ability to provide a service people want or a good people need. You get to choose what you do and don't do and how you do it. That being the case, that capitalism is so great and so wonderful, you might be tempted to ask, but realist philosopher, if that's all capitalism is, just the expression of one's freedom in the economic realm, then why do so many people have a problem with it? Why are so many people calling it evil and oppressive? Well, the simple answer is that some people have a problem with being free, with freedom, because not only is there the possibility of success, but there's also the possibility of failure. And some people just don't like the consequences of failure. As for the long answer, well, let's get into that. And this is where we get into what capitalism isn't, but what some people would like it to be or would like to believe it to be. So, first of all, capitalism is not oppressive or evil or unfair or in any way, shape, or form exploitive. Those who make these kind of claims that capitalism is a horrible thing, meaning the freedom to pursue your dreams within the business realm, well, these people are really socialists who, generally speaking, advocate for state control of the ways and means of production instead of what they consider to be the evil private ownership of business, which is what you have when there's actual freedom, meaning you get to keep the fruits of your labor instead of having them stolen from you by somebody crying foul, by somebody crying that because they are not as rich and successful as you, that something's wrong, something's corrupt, something just isn't working correctly. So now somebody, Big Daddy Government, has to come in and make things right, make things fair, make things equal. And that's one of the arguments against capitalism, is that too few have too much, and that this is exploitative to the worker, and that this is exploiting the worker. Utter nonsense. In a free market, the worker is free to accrue his own capital, start his own business. If he lacks the skill or ability to do so, then he has the option to go and work for somebody else instead of starving to death. That said, many people don't realize this, and they tell themselves, or they're told by others, that it's not their fault that they failed in the entrepreneurial field, but instead it's the fault of the evil capitalist system, which is exploitative by nature, even though at a fundamental level, it's nothing more than people being free to do what they wish with their own money. So even though he, the worker, lacks the ability to start his own business, he wants ownership in your business where he's a worker because socialist activists have told him that profit is theft, and because workers are an integral part of the company, that they should share in the ownership and the profits. The argument being that there would be no business without the worker performing the labor. While there's some truth to this, there would most certainly be no business without the entrepreneur who invested the time and money to start said business. If it fails, he's the one who shoulders the burden of all the risk involved and all the debt. The worker, well, he could just walk away and get another job. But the entrepreneur, not so much. Hence, since he's taking all the risk, he deserves to be rewarded for that risk, don't you think? And keep in mind that the worker by himself, again, in this scenario, he lacked the ability to open a business, so he went to work for somebody else. And the profit generated by his labor that he thinks is his, because it comes from his own labor, is actually his contribution to the upkeep and infrastructure growth of that company, infrastructure which allows him to work and make money. Something a lot of people don't understand is that profits from a business, they get poured back into the business, or they're held as cash reserves in case there's a decline in business in the future. Profits aren't just pocketed by the business owner. Generally, they're used to reinvest in the business to keep it competitive. The money, i.e. share of the profit, which the quote-unquote worker thinks he should be entitled to, is used to provide him with the necessary tools, materials, facilities, infrastructure to make the products that pay his salary. Without that profit, he would have nowhere to do his work and therefore would have no salary to begin with. Because there would be no business. Because they would very quickly go out of business, because they wouldn't be able to upgrade their infrastructure, change, adapt to the markets, expand, remain in any way competitive. Hence, they would go under and he'd be out of a job. So there's no exploitation of the worker going on. And the profits don't go into bosses' pockets. Those bosses get a salary, which has nothing to do with the profit that the business makes. They're completely, totally separate. Which, of course, brings us to the next argument that socialists love to bring up as what they think of as proof of exploitation, that being highly paid executives. Here's one example. Say you're the CEO of Walmart and you're getting a salary of, $50 million a year. Now, you're not the owner necessarily, but the CEO or chief operating officer. That doesn't always mean that you're the owner. In fact, oftentimes it doesn't. So, why are you getting $50 million a year if you don't own the company? Why are you getting so much money? I mean, really, why are you getting $50 million when a worker is only getting, say, $50,000? Yes, let's compare apples to Buicks, okay? That's a good question. One that I don't think people try to answer often enough. Why is that person, that CEO, getting paid $50 million a year, while some lowly worker's only getting $50,000? I mean, is the CEO getting paid $50 million because he's handsome? Is he getting paid $50 million because he's well-liked? Nobody pays anybody that much money just because they like them. So, if none of these are good reasons to pay someone that much money, why is the CEO making so much? Well, I'll tell you why. The CEO in this scenario is getting paid $50 million a year because they bring more than $50 million of value to the position they're occupying. They're literally creating more than $50 million of value. Likely a lot more. And it's really that simple. No money is being taken out of the worker's pocket to pay the CEO, by the way. That you, the worker, even have a job is because the CEO is doing his job. And he's doing it well enough so that there are no layoffs and no pay cuts. And if a CEO is doing his job well, then his work is allowing your work to make money in the first place. His job is to allow you to have a job and make money to make a living. His work is what makes your work both possible and profitable. That's right. His work. For you see, CEOs are workers too. Or did you not realize that? Of course not. Of course, many of you didn't realize that because socialist agitators work very hard to create an us versus them feeling where the corporate workers are evil others. Yeah, I know that socialists love to try and cast the wealthy as non-workers, but the majority of these people do work, and work very hard, by the way. That said, socialists want you to believe the CEO and other executives in a company are not workers. That way it's easier for you to tell yourself that they're stealing from you by getting paid big salaries that they in fact earned through their own labor, their own work. Anyhow, that's it for part 1 of my lecture on what is capitalism. Please stay tuned for part 2, which will be coming soon. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at admin@therealistphilosopher.com. That's admin@therealistphilosopher.com. Also consider checking out my twice-a-week podcast, which is released on Tuesdays and Fridays. The link is in the description. And if you like my content, please consider supporting my work at therealistphilosopher.com/donate. That's therealistphilosopher.com/donate. I could really use your help as I receive no monetization from YouTube whatsoever. You also might want to consider following me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You'll also find those links in the description. And please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'm the Realist Philosopher, and I wish you a good day. Take care.